All right, let's talk about Britain's Roswell. Back in the winter of 1980, deep inside a quiet English forest, something happened that became the UK's biggest, most credible, and honestly, most controversial UFO case ever. We're talking about multiple nights of encounters, high-ranking US military officers as witnesses, and actual physical evidence left behind. And the craziest part? For 45 years, the most important files on what really went down are still locked away.
And listen to this. That's not some actor reading a script. That's the actual real-time audio from a U.S. Air Force Deputy Base Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt. He's recording this on his government-issue tape recorder as he's standing in that forest, watching it all happen with his own eyes. And what he saw that night would kick off a mystery that's still going strong almost half a century later.
So picture this. The scene is Rendlesham Forest. It's this dark, dense patch of woods squished right between two U.S. Air Force bases on the British coast. And the timing? It's December 1980, the absolute peak of the Cold War. Suddenly, military personnel start seeing these bizarre lights coming down from the sky, descending into the trees, right on the doorstep of one of the most sensitive military sites in Europe. Now, this wasn't just a quick flash of light in the sky. This was a series of events that got more intense over 3 nights in a row. It started with an unbelievably close encounter, then more sightings the next night, and it all climaxed with the base's second-in-command, Colonel Holt, leading his own team deep into the woods to figure out what on earth was going on. Okay, so that first night, this is where the story gets absolutely wild. A security officer, Staff Sergeant Jim Peniston, reports something that just sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie. He says he walked right up to a triangular craft, about 9 feet tall, just sitting silently on the forest floor. He even touched it, saying it was warm and weirdly smooth. For 45 minutes, he was there, sketching these strange symbols he saw on its surface right into his official notebook.
And this is a huge reason why the Rendlesham case just refuses to go away. It wasn't just a story. The very next day, teams went back out to that clearing, and they found hard, physical proof. There were 3 clear indentations in the frozen ground, right where you'd expect landing gear to be. And when they brought out a Geiger counter, boom, radiation levels at that spot were way, way higher than in the rest of the forest.
So you've got credible, trained military witnesses, you've got physical traces on the ground, and you have the base's deputy commander on tape describing it. You'd think that would trigger a massive, immediate investigation, right? Well, not quite. In fact, the official paper trail tells a completely different story, one of immediate, almost frantic denial. And this, right here, is the central puzzle of the whole Rendlesham mystery. For years and years, the official explanation from the UK's Ministry of Defense was that all these highly trained Air Force personnel were just confused by a lighthouse. A lighthouse 5 miles away. Somehow, that lighthouse was supposed to have landed in the forest, left indentations in the ground, and given off radiation. The gap between the official story and the actual military reports is just massive.
But here's the thing. Internally, this was not swept under the rug. A few weeks after the incident, Lieutenant Colonel Holt wrote this document. It's an official memo sent to the British Ministry of Defense, and it lays it all out. The landing, the physical evidence, the whole deal. This memo is pretty much the smoking gun of the case. It's a senior U.S. officer on the record confirming these unbelievable events in an official report.
And what was the official British response to that memo? This. Basically, nothing to see here. They concluded it was no threat to national security. I mean, think about that for a second. An unknown craft is buzzing around a highly sensitive Cold War military base for 3 straight nights, and that's not a threat to national security? If anything, that explanation is even weirder than the event itself.
So it turns out there was a very, very good reason for all the weird denials and the story that made no sense. The official story wasn't really about dismissing a UFO report. No, it was a desperate cover for a secret that was considered way, way more important.
So why? Why would 2 of the most powerful governments in the world go to such insane lengths to bury this story? Why would they insist it was just a lighthouse when their own internal documents proved it was something else entirely? The answer? Well, it changes everything you think you know about this incident.
And here it is. For decades, this was completely classified. But those twin bases, RAF Bentwaters and Woodbridge, weren't just any old airfields.
They housed one of the largest stockpiles of American nuclear weapons in all of Europe. So those strange lights weren't in some random forest. They were buzzing a top-secret nuclear weapons facility at the absolute height of the Cold War. And if that wasn't alarming enough, it gets worse. On the third night of the sightings, multiple witnesses, including Colonel Holt himself, reported that the object didn't just fly around. They claimed it appeared to be actively targeting the weapons storage area, the nuclear bunkers, firing these precise laser-like beams of light right into the facility.
So this is not just some old, dusty cold case. That nuclear connection is precisely why, 45 years on, crucial files are still hidden away. And it's why this decades-old story is suddenly at the center of a major, ongoing fight for the truth that is happening right now.
You have to understand the whole global conversation on this topic has flipped on its head. For decades, the U.S. government's official position was total denial. But since 2019, they've done a complete 180. They're now admitting UAPs are real, they're releasing Navy videos, they're holding hearings in Congress. And this new era of transparency in America makes the UK's continued stony silence on its most famous case look more suspicious than ever. And all that new openness from the US is fueling a brand new campaign for the truth in the UK. You have researchers, members of parliament, and former military guys all using what's happening in the States to demand that the UK government finally come clean about Rendlesham. They're filing smarter, more legally targeted information requests, and they're really aiming to force this whole issue into the open by 2026. And this is exactly what they're fighting for. We're not just talking about vague UFO files. Researchers have identified very specific, critical documents that are still being hidden. We're talking about the complete, unredacted radiation readings from the landing site, the secret memos that flew back and forth between the US and UK governments, any reports from the nuclear storage area itself, and, crucially, the medical files of the men who witnessed these events. And those medical files are so important. One of the key witnesses, John Burroughs, suffered from really serious health problems after his encounter in the forest. After a very long, difficult fight, the U.S. Veterans Administration finally agreed to pay for his medical care. And that's basically a quiet admission from the U.S. government that something real, something tangible, and something physically harmful happened to their servicemen out there that night. Which, brings us right back to the biggest question of all. After nearly half a century, the Cold War is long over, those bases are closed. What could possibly be in those last locked files? What did they learn about an unknown object interacting with a nuclear weapons site that is still so sensitive they can't let any of us see it?